I clicked the correct button. Hooray! Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special, what day is it today? Wednesday video stream. I usually do these on Fridays, but because of the holidays, my schedule is a little bit weird, and I actually have not been live streaming a ton lately, so I just wanted to get my face out on video for all of you as soon as I could, and today was the day. So welcome back. We are here to talk about art and have good times. How is everybody doing? Can you hear me okay? Today's topic is how to shop for artists for the holidays. About 2 weeks ago, I did an episode where we talked about how you can celebrate the arts during your holiday celebrations and gave some suggestions on how some different gifts that you could get for people in your life that love fantasy art, or gifts that you can get for yourself so that you can have some amazing art fun while you're celebrating your holiday. So this is kind of the follow-up to that episode. Now I'm going to talk to the other end of the table, the people who have artists in their lives and they want to get them art supplies for the holidays. I'm going to go over some tips for all of you so that you can buy with confidence and be ready to go out gift shopping for the holidays. I'm going to try my best to get this video on YouTube by this Friday, so there's still some time for all of you shoppers out there to get the magical gifts that you want. By the way, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Heather R. Hitchman. I am an artist and world builder creating the paranormal fairy tale realm of Terratoff. It is a realm filled with art and stories that combine the fun of fantasy creatures with paranormal activity and the supernatural. You can find out more about me and my work by checking out all of those links below. I've got a Patreon, which is the only place where you can see all of the Terratoff art and stories in completion in one place. You can follow for free and you'll get to see all of the finished art, but if you want to see things behind the scenes and also help me to continue to make this magical realm and get some special rewards and other delightful goodies that nobody else on the internet gets, consider making a pledge. Even a pledge of just $1 a month unlocks a lot of really great rewards and helps me to continue creating this wonderful content for everybody. If you would like to get daily updates, I've got an Instagram and a Twitter. That is where I post all of my daily thoughts and to-dos. My YouTube is where I post all of my finished video content, so that will be where I post all of my storytime videos. Those are videos where you can watch me create the artwork while I tell you the story. I also post my time-lapse videos where I show the completion of the art uninterrupted from beginning to end in a squashed time frame. So my drawing time lapses tend to be about half an hour long, and the paintings are going to be about an hour. So it's really great stuff to just kind of put on in the background when you need to focus, but you'd like to have something to watch with some soothing Terratoff themed music playing in the background. And of course, I also have my Etsy store where you can adopt all of the magical creatures and stories from the realm that I am creating. How is everybody in the chat doing today? Now that I've got through my introductions, I'd like to meet all of you, whoever is watching. Don't be afraid to give me a little hello in the chat. Today we are going to be talking about how to shop for artists for the holidays. So when I do these kind of topical streams, I do talk a lot, and I'll be showing you a lot of different supplies here on my links. I've got a ton of tabs open here for us to explore lots of wonderful art supplies, and I've also got most of the supplies that we're going to be talking about right here next to me. So even though I'm going to be talking a lot, feel free to keep chatting amongst yourselves or ask me questions or just tell me how wonderful I am in the chat, because one, it's really encouraging and it lets me know that there's people there watching me, and two, you're not going to be interrupting me by talking while I'm talking. I will be just fine talking about everything that's on my mind on my handy dandy list right here, and I will get to the chat when the opportunity presents, when there's an actual break in the conversation. I'm really excited about this stream because I get asked a lot when the holidays come up, what do you want for Christmas? And like, what art supplies specifically? What art supplies do you want for Christmas? Or my husband Tad is also an artist, so people will ask me if they want to get Tad a gift as well. What do I get Tad? And sometimes they think what I like is also what he likes. And just because we're both artists, this is not true. Different artists have different needs depending on the different type of art that they do, the different mediums that they like to use. So I'm hoping that this little chat we're about to have will be illuminating for all of you that have artists in your lives that maybe you don't understand the process of making art yourself, or you're still getting used to all of the new terms and the different equipment and things like that that are involved, or maybe you have a child who is getting into art and you just don't know what to get them. We're going to talk about all of that stuff tonight. I'm going to give my recommendations. Specifically, I want to just say before we get too deep into this, I'm going to be talking specifically about the mediums that I use on a daily basis. So we'll be talking about graphite pencils, we'll be talking about colored pencils, we'll be talking about watercolor, and we'll be talking about gouache, and most of the main kind of equipment you'll need to go along with that. So paper and brushes and things like that. I'm not going to talk about oil paint. I'm not going to talk about acrylic. I'm not going to talk about markers or ink and stuff like that, because these are not mediums that I use on a regular basis. So I don't feel comfortable making recommendations on what you should buy. If you want to know what kind of oil paint you should buy, you should check out Annie Stegg or Justin Gerard and see what they recommend. They also have young children, so they have a lot of really great thoughts and recommendations on paints that are safe to have around young children. And if you're interested in acrylic paint, I recommend Jasmine Beckett Griffith, of course. Fabulous artist, Strangeling, makes all of her wonderful, beautiful, big-eyed women. She uses acrylic paint, and I'm sure that she has some recommendations on her Patreon and her website and things like that. Before I get too deep into any of these specific tools, I'm going to go ahead and save you all a lot of time. You might be able to stop watching this video if this is on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, you might be able to stop watching this in about 5 minutes, because I'm going to give you the number one tip that you need to know for buying art supplies for the artists in your life. And here it is. It's going to blow your mind. Go and ask them what art supplies they like. And I know that might take the wind out of your sails because you want to surprise them and you want to give them something that they're not expecting. But trust me, the best thing you can possibly do is just go ahead and talk to your artist friend and ask them what kind of supplies that they would like and what they use. And here's why. Because depending on the kind of art that they do, the kind of mediums that they like, their technique, what kind of topics and things they're painting, the sizes, the kind of art that they are doing, like commercially or personal or whatever, every artist has different needs. That's why there is an overwhelming amount of different art supplies and materials out there, because every artist likes to have different things. And it's almost impossible to guess if you're not an artist yourself or you don't know that artist intimately enough to know the kind of supplies that they use regularly. So don't be afraid to just go and ask the artist what they are using, what their favorite stuff is, get specific, like find out what the brand name is, the size of the thing is, because this is all information you're going to need to know when you're shopping for your artist friend. So definitely consider just going up to them and asking them. It might seem like it's not that fun, it's going to spoil the surprise, but trust me, as an artist, I would much rather have someone come and ask me what supplies I would like than have them just guess and get me something that I'm honestly not going to use, because once you get to a certain point in your career, most artists I know, they tend not to experiment a whole lot with things that they don't use all the time. They kind of have their tried and true materials that they like to use. Now, that's not to say that's true for every artist. Some artists love to experiment with lots of different things. Me, I'm the kind of artist that knows what I like, and I just kind of use the same things. I might branch out and experiment when the need arises, but until that need arises, I don't know what I want to get. So for example, recently I changed the kind of colored pencils that I used because I wanted something that was more light fast than what I was previously using. So that was information that I used, to go and find a new brand of pencil. But personally, I don't change my branding, my brands that often. Artists that are watching this now or in the chat, what do you think? Do you guys like to stick to the same supplies, or do you experiment a lot? Maybe I'm the weird one, but I tend to just want to get what I know works. I don't like to just have random supplies lying around because they'll just like never get used, and I would much rather get if somebody's going to go out and take the effort and the time to go get me a gift, I want to make sure that they are using that time wisely too. So now let's say you really do not want to ask the artist. For some reason, it's not possible for you to go and ask this artist. Well, or you really want to surprise them. Okay, so here's the advice I give in this circumstance. I recommend that if you have access to their studio, that you go and you just look at their art supplies and take notes or take photos and find that stuff and go buy it. That way it can still be a surprise and you can still know that you're getting them what they need. Look for supplies that look really well used. So for an example, a pencil that is halfway sharpened. That means they've used that pencil a lot. They probably like it. They will need a new one sooner or later. Look for a sketchbook that's running out of pages. Look for a brush that looks like it's kind of withered and the bristles are falling off. That's a good sign that that brush needs to be replaced. So if you really want to surprise somebody, that would be my advice. Go and do a little bit of snooping, with respect. Still pay respect to their space and their things. But I think if you want to get them a little surprise present, a little bit of snooping around the studio to get some clues as to what to get is perfectly reasonable, perfectly fine. Just don't disturb anything or break anything or knock any paint over. Don't do anything crazy like that, because that will really ruin the surprise, wouldn't it? Not a lot of holiday cheer. All right, let's check out my list to make sure. Yes, okay, so another thing I wanted to say, if you are going to go the route of gathering information snoopily, make sure that you take note of the brand name of whatever it is that you're taking a note of, the size of the thing, and any other kind of like notable sort of features on it. So for example, certain pencils come from a certain collection, like the brand name. That's not a good example. Let me find a better example. Okay, so these are Tombow colored pencils here, but this is a specific collection. This is their irojiten collection. So a lot of brands will have different kind of subcategories for the things that they do. So if you were to type in Tombow pencil, you might feel that you are very proud and you're ready to go and shop, but then there's so many Tombow color pencils, you might feel overwhelmed and be like, wait a minute, I don't know which one to get. It'll probably say, and it says right here on the box, real big, irojiten. So it's usually not too hard to figure out. And then you can also look for like color codes. So it's here on the box. This is a D17, and that is their color code for whatever color this is. I think it's like forest green or something. And it also says it on the pencil itself. So even if the box isn't around, they like to have it printed on the pencil. And that's because as the pencils get used and sharpened, this information is going to be critical for the artist to order more of that supply. So they keep it close to the bottom, so when they're running low, that information is still visible to them and they can go and get that. So make sure when you're snooping around, you take note of the brand name and the collection name. All right. And the places that I recommend that you can go and buy these supplies, I highly recommend Jerry's Artorama and Dick Blick. That's usually where I get my supplies. Those are very reputable art stores. And then there's Amazon. You can get art supplies, but generally, they're actually more expensive on Amazon. Weird. So sometimes the thing that I want isn't available at the art store, so I have to get it on Amazon, and that's kind of a bummer. But you can always, check the different prices and see which one has the better sale and the better offering. Though I do want to encourage all of you to go and support art businesses. And, if you have the opportunity and the means to buy from the art store over a place like Amazon, I highly recommend that you support the arts and go and shop there. I also want to say, before I forget and before we go too much further into this video, that Jerry's Artorama does sponsor me and my art. They send me a lot of supplies all the time, and a lot of the supplies that we're going to talk about today are supplies that they have sent me to review. And I want you to be assured that I only show the supplies that I like. So this video has been created solely with 100% my genuine feelings about all of the supplies I'm going to show you. If there's a thing that they send me that I don't like, I don't talk about it, but I like to talk a lot about the good supplies that they send me. So that is out of the way. Now that we've established that, on to the next bullet point here. So we've only gone 25 minutes into this stream, and I've already given you the two top things you can do. Talk to the artist and ask them what their supplies of their desires are, or go snooping about their studio and find out for yourself. Now, let's say, for whatever reason, you cannot ask them and you cannot snoop, and you just need to know a starting point, what to get them. Maybe this artist is just starting out and they don't know what they want. Or maybe this is somebody who you just really want to surprise them and they have no clue what's going on. I'm going to go through my favorite art supplies and give you guys some recommendations on the kind of art supplies that if someone were to buy me an art supply present, this is the stuff that I would like. And I think all of this stuff, with exception to like one thing, is the stuff that I have actually used. And I didn't want to include anything that I haven't used personally, but I did include this brand because it's so highly recommended. And I'll make sure that I point it out once we get to that. But everything else that we're going to talk about, I have used myself and I love it. I actually was going to get some art that I could show you. So I could show you the art that I've made with these different brands. So I'm going to go ahead and get that off to the side, and I'll show you once we get to it. Key the Dragon says, "Oh my god, hi. I can only stay for a very short amount of time, but I followed you recently on Instagram and spammed the like on every dragon drawing you did. I love your work. I hope you're having a lovely day." Thank you so much, Key the Dragon, and welcome. Thank you for joining us, even if it is for but a wee moment. It is a moment that I will cherish forever. Welcome, welcome. So happy to have you here. Today we're talking about how to shop for artists for the holidays, and I'm giving recommendations on different items that you can get for your artist friends. And I know that you can't stay so long, but if you would like to continue watching this video later for all of my delicious artsy secrets, it will be posted in the VOD section of my Twitch. I think it'll stick around for about a month, but it'll also be on my YouTube channel very soon, so you can also see it there. Oh my god, how did you get your cat on screen to say hello to me? Okay. Oh, what is this thing called? Let me see if I can figure that out. So it's Capamon. I'm going to go ahead and type that in. You want to go get a Capamon and go to their website, and it can like link to your Twitch and interact with your Twitch people. and mine's kind of broken because oh my god, that's amazing. Thank you. So one of the cool things that you can do with the Capamon, this little cat down here, is you can program it to react to different stimuli. So for example, I have it programmed whenever somebody writes, "Oh my god," that little gif of Gimli pops up. However, because people on the internet are dumb, a lot of people deleted some of the GIFs I was using off the internet. So there's a bunch of keywords that pop up and then there's no GIF. So the cat's just reacting and it's like an empty speech bubble. And I've got like over 100 reactions because I just went really crazy and I was like, I want this cat to move all the time, no matter what anybody says. And I deeply regret that because now I have to go back and like check all the GIFs and delete all the ones that didn't work, or just steal them, and that would actually probably be better, just to steal them and put them on my own server so I can make sure they never go away. Oh, I had a cat hair in my mouth. Are you able to save your own GIFs into it, like ones you make personally? So they have to be hosted on the internet, so like it works with like a link. So if I had my own on my own server, I could. But that's a lot of extra work. So that's like a maybe sometime in the future project. So I'll probably just disable a bunch of them for now and worry about that later. I'm just glad that it made you happy that little Fergus here said hello to you. Good job, Fergus. You're making all the people in the chat very happy. You're doing a good job. Yes. Pet, pet, pet. It did make me happy. I'm very glad that it did, Key. I'm very glad. Alrighty, so let's continue on with the topic at hand. We're going to talk about these supplies that I have picked out for us as my gift recommendations. So first, let's talk about graphite. Let's talk about graphite pencils. I use these a lot for my drawings. Let me show you some of the drawings that I have done. Let's just find, ooh, I know what you guys want to see. You want to see this fawn. Where is it? Here we go. I'm going to show you this. So this is an example of a drawing that I have done with a simple mechanical lead pencil such as this. There's colored pencils and other stuff in there, but this was before I actually started using other pencils, these traditional wooden ones, in combination with this. I drew this back when I was just using mechanical lead pencils. So this is the kind of art that you can make with something as simple as this. Just a twist erase mechanical lead pencil. I use the 0.5 lead and they work out great for me. You can get the lead in different values as well. So you can get a lighter lead or you can get a darker lead. It'll tell you on the box what kind it is. But it's fairly simple and they're cheap. There's all kinds of different mechanical pencils you can get. You can get some really fancy artsy ones and you can get something really simple like this. I like this one because it's got a like cushioned grip towards the bottom. A lot of the artsy ones have like metal ones that have texture on them, and maybe my fingers are very delicate, but I personally don't like using them. I like using something nice and rubber like this, and I've had these for a really long time, so they have not worn away or gotten damaged. Mine's purple with glitter on it because I actually painted them with nail polish to remind myself which ones had which kind of lead in them, and I actually already forgot. So I just kind of feel it out. Like, if this one doesn't look dark enough, I try another one. You can also put an eraser on the back of it, which is really great. It did have a little, one of those little hook things that you can use to hook it onto your pocket, but I took that off because it would get in the way of my hand, and I don't really have pockets because I'm a girl and they don't put pockets in our clothes. So I just took that away, and it's out of the way of my hand, so for me to use this pencil. But Simple mechanical pencil like that is easy. The 0.5 lead like the one I have and the 0.7 lead like the one you see in the picture here, they are standard sizes. So you can look for those kind of sizes if you're not sure what kind of lead size you should be looking for. Key said, sorry, I just got excited to catch your stream. Don't apologize. I'm happy to have someone in the chat speaking to me. It's awesome. So please, you can talk to the cat all that you like. I'm sure Fergus is very appreciative. The other kind of pencil that I want to recommend is a nice set of graphite pencils like this one. This is one of the ones that Jerry's Artorama sent me, and I use these pencils all the time. These are the Cezanne graphite pencil tin set of 12. This is what it looks like when it's not out of the box yet. I should do an unboxing video of this. It comes in a really nice like cardboard container like this, and it explains on the back a little bit more of the history and prestige of these pencils, and it also shows you the different values that you get on the bottom. And I really like this visual representation because it can show you what different values you're going to get with the different pencils. So for example, the 2H pencil is the lightest pencil. It's also the hardest lead, so that means it's going to withstand a lot of pressure. It's like just a tougher material, but it's also very light, and you go all the way down to 12B, which is extremely dark but very soft. So we must handle that one with care. This is what it looks like when it's out of the cardboard container, and it has a really nice tin that the pencils come in, and they're just, oh, I haven't even used these yet. They're just nicely set up in the, I'm holding it so they don't all fall out. Nicely set up in the tin like that. And they've got the number towards the bottom that tells you what number of the pencil it is. So this one says 12B. This is going to be the darkest one. And then we've got like the H over here. I don't know if I took them out of order or they showed up that way, but they're labeled. So even though if they're not in order, you can sort it out yourself. And it's a nice tin that doesn't seem to fly open too often. So this is the graphite pencil that I would recommend. Honestly, with graphite, I feel like you don't have to be too picky because graphite kind of across the board really isn't too different. The things that you want to pay attention to when you're shopping for graphite mostly, I think, is just the shape of the pencil. For example, you can get round pencils like those, and then some other brands, they have like a hexagonal or like a shape to them that's more rigid. So maybe the artist that you're shopping for has a preference to the shape of pencil that they like to use. But generally speaking, with graphite pencils, you can't really do any wrong. Just make sure you're actually getting an art pencil and not like the kind that you would get for like a standardized test when you were in school. The Key Dragon says... Key the Dragon says, I do have to go right now, but I really want to catch you again sometime. I hope you have a lovely day and night. I shared you with my friends. I don't know if anyone will arrive. Why can't I talk today? I don't know if anyone will arrive at the moment, but it doesn't hurt to tell others. That's right, Key the Dragon. I love shares. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for sharing my channel with your friends. I hope that you enjoyed being here for a moment and that you'll catch me again. I actually stream a lot when the holidays aren't going on, so I hope we'll see you here again. But I appreciate all shares, likes, comments. They all help other people to find my art and to enjoy the magic of Terratoff. Aw, thanks for that heart, Key the Dragon. Heart back at you. Was there anything else I wanted to say about graphite pencils? That was pretty much it. So graphite pencils, got you covered. I'm going to be doing a little bit of back and forth because I got like two piles going on. I got like the pile of stuff I got to talk about, pile of stuff I have talked about. Next, we're going to talk about colored pencils. I love colored pencils, even though I don't really consider what I do to be colored pencil drawings. I kind of consider my artwork to be drawings with some color. I don't know, maybe that's just me being like a like really weird artist person who's like, well, technically it's this term, I don't know. But let me show you a drawing that I've done that maybe features the colored pencils a little bit more. So let's see. we are going to go look at the Mermaid collection of 2020, because these are actually a really good example of me using more color. So the previous drawing that we just looked at, the one of the listening rot, she has quite a bit less color than the one I'm about to show you. This one I really went crazy and used a lot of color. This is the Beta Fish Mermicorn from the Mermaid 2020 collection. So I made this a little bit earlier in the year, and you can see I used a lot of color here. Now, my philosophy and my process with these drawings is that I am building up the color slowly, phase by phase, but I'm focusing most of the color on the line art, because I don't really consider my artwork to be color pencil drawings like you would see where they're completely filling the area of the page and like all the creatures and all of the different elements in the drawings with color. I like to build the color up along the lines specifically and then kind of top it all off with graphite at the end. And what I feel that that does, it kind of creates this layering of color around the line art specifically, that if you look closely at the piece, you can see all of the different colors commingling. And I really love this process because the graphite can bring out different kind of colors and tones and things from the colored pencil that I feel is a really magical process. So this is an example of a piece that I've done recently that has a lot more colored pencil in it. And actually, it's a great one to show for the example because it's an example of one that I used my newer colored pencil set with, the Carand'ache colored pencils right here. Let's go and look at these. So these are Carand'ache colored pencils. They are a wax-based colored pencil. They're my favorite wax-based colored pencil, and I highly recommend them. This is the Luminance collection, and they are I think they have one of, if not the highest lightfast rating of all wax colored pencils. And that is what that means is, if you are new to this and you do not know or you're not familiar with the term lightfast, lightfast means how long the color and the pigment is going to stand against the test of time and the effects of light hitting the artwork. Because as artwork is exposed to light, depending on the materials that you used and how you have displayed the art, then the pigments can fade away. Especially, I think blues are very susceptible, so make sure when you're hanging your art you're not putting it into any direct light. But to help make sure that we are protecting the artwork even more, it's important to use materials such as these materials that we know have a really good light fast rating. So the Carand'ache Luminance collection comes in this really nice box. I actually love the box. It's got a really nice padded compartment that keeps all of the pencils really nice and secure. I've had issues with ordering other brands and the pencils just kind of roll around in the packaging, and that's actually really bad for the pencils because it can break the lead that's inside. And when your artist is sharpening their pencils, then the lead can crumble and break, and then that pencil is basically useless, and it really stinks. So we like to have a nice secure package like this. You really get your money's worth with these pencils. They are quite expensive, but you don't have to get a huge set like these. You can get a smaller set. Something like the set of 12 is on Jerry's Artorama right now for $38. And that sounds like a lot of money for 12 pencils, but trust me, if you use these pencils right and you treat them well, you can make them last for a while. I have, I think, 3 sets of them that I bought because I bought one and I was like, I gotta have more of them. And Jerry's Artorama sent me some, and I'm still working through my first set because I take really good care to make sure that I sharpen them in a way that makes them last longer, and I keep them safe from falling off of their platforms to make sure that the barrels and things inside don't break. So Carand'ache pencils, my favorite wax-based colored pencil. Then the other kind of pencil that I use, these are the Derwent lightfast colored pencils. So let me show you an example of a piece that I would use this in. I actually typically use these not for drawings, but for paintings. Let me see. I'm going to show you one of my most popular paintings and one of my favorites, the Leviathan. Ooh, a spoopy dragon. So this is an example of a piece that I would use the Derwent lightfast oil-based colored pencils. And the reason why I like to use oil colored pencils with my paintings is so that I can get really great line art that isn't going to be super shiny. Because when I've used wax-based colored pencils on top of the other medium, for this one it was watercolor and gouache like the rest of my paintings, the wax can come off as really shiny and then kind of conflict with the more subtle tones and the matte shades of the paints that I use. So I really like using these oil-based colored pencils because I can kind of smudge them into the paint in a really subtle, beautiful way. And also when I'm looking at the heavier lines directly, it's not shiny. So I really love using these pencils for painting, and that's how I get all of the line art around all of the paint. I know some artists like to paint their line art and it's really beautiful, and I wish that I could do that sometimes, but I just love pencils so much. I really am just like a pencil fiend, so I like to use them whenever I get the chance. And I just really love these Derwent lightfast oil colored pencils. They come in really nice sets such as these. You can also buy them individually, but you'll always save more money if you can buy them as a group like this. Here is the case that I keep mine in. So I've actually only ever bought them singly. I've never bought a case before, and that's because I have very specific colors that I need. Because my colors are going over top of a painting, I want to use the darkest colors. So I typically don't buy the sets because I need to get the darkest colors available, and I don't really want to waste money on lighter colors. But your artist might be different. Your artist might want a whole set of the different colors, and they're great. They can also last a really long time if you treat them well. This, again, is an expensive pencil. These pencils I'm showing you right now are like top quality, very good, some of the best pencils out there. Another brand that I would highly recommend if you're looking for a wax-based colored pencil is the Faber-Castell Polychromos. Anything, according to my research, anything that's got the word poly in it is oil-based when it comes to pencils. Faber-Castell is another really great brand. I prefer the Derwents because they're actually, to me, a little bit more oily. And I like that for using them over top of my paintings. I know a lot of artists prefer Faber-Castell because it's not so oily and because they want to use it on paper, and that gives them different results. Again, ask the artist, check out what kind of supplies they got lying around, because different artists have different needs depending on what they like. Some other brands that I would recommend if that is a little bit too far out of your budget range, or maybe you're buying for someone that's just starting to get into art and you're not sure if you're going to want to spend a ton of money getting the most expensive thing. I also recommend, this was the brand I used to use a lot more often, and I use them now typically for sketching and things. I recommend the Tombow irojiten brand. They are still a good pencil, good quality, and they actually have, the thing that I love about this particular collection is they have some really beautiful colors that are inspired by nature, and you can get some really nice kind of subtle shades that I just don't see other colored pencil companies making. So Tombow irojiten, also a good brand. Might need to be a little bit more careful with the light fastness on them, but I think as long as you are protecting the artwork and you're not putting it in direct light, then it should be fine. But I do think that the Carand'ache luminants are probably the best brand to go with if you're concerned about light fastness or something comparable to them. So was there anything else I wanted to say about the colored pencils? I don't have an example here, but another brand that you can look for actually is, oh my god, I just had it and then I forgot. Prismacolor. Prismacolor also makes very good colored pencils. I know a lot of artists swear by them. I personally don't use them except for like very specific things, and it's just because I just don't personally like the feel of them. It's nothing to do with the quality or the colors available or anything like that. They're also a really great pencil to use, so if you are looking for another option, Prismacolor is another really good brand that you can look in that's kind of like in the middle cost wise. It's not going to be as much as the Carand'ache or the Derwent lightfast ones. If somebody is doing more colored pencil drawing in like a traditional manner, like think like a coloring book, Prismacolor is kind of like a better brand for that sort of thing, I think. Moving on, if you are using pencils, you're going to need something to draw on, right? Is that what we're talking about next? Yes! We're going to talk about paper for a moment. My favorite kind of paper is this any kind of sketchbook from Moleskine, and they make lots of different sizes. I have a couple right here I can show you. So this is an example of a small Moleskine that I have, and it's just like a really nice little small sketchbook. I love this paper because it's just like a really great color. It's not like a bright white. It looks a little bright because there's a light right there, but if you actually, let me see if I can hover over here. I can. Okay. So it's kind of like this nice, like rich, kind of yellowy, taupey, kind of sepia-y, kind of old world kind of colored paper. So I love that about it. And I also love that it has like a little bit of tooth, but not too much tooth. So I can draw really smoothly over it. For those of you who don't know what tooth is, that means how much texture the paper has. So it has like a little bit of texture, so it's not going to glide quite as smoothly as something like a Bristol board would. But it's not, so yeah, so it has a little bit of texture to it, but not too much. And I feel like it's just the right amount. For me anyway. Like it's smooth, but not so smooth that like my pencils are just going to glide and the paper's not going to like absorb anything. I feel like it's important to know, if you're an artist, if you like for the surface that you're drawing or painting or whatever on, if you know that if you like for it to actually absorb pigment or for the pigment to sit on top of it, because the pencils and things are going to react differently depending on what you like. But I feel like this is a really good middle ground for most artists. A lot of artists use Moleskines, and they have many different sizes. You can get a small one like this, or you can get a big boy like this puppy. I love it. It's so big and beautiful and beefy, and it comes like in a nice hardcover. I haven't gone to draw on it that often, sadly, because I just have not had the time lately to do like a really big drawing. But look at that. Look at that big page that you can do to create massive artwork on. Like, well, for me, this is pretty massive. I know there are people that like paint on like, 20 foot by 20 foot panels, and they're like, really, Heather? That's like tiny. Like, I could paint on that in 20 minutes. Well, I draw, and drawing takes a lot more time than painting. It does. And you know why? Because when you're painting really big, you can get a bigger paintbrush. You can't get a bigger pencil. Not really. So drawing really does, to me, take a lot longer because, like, you can't really change the size of the detail so much. Like, that's just more you have to draw. When it's a painting, you can kind of, like, skip some steps and make more broader strokes and things like that. When you're drawing, you gotta really draw it all. So this actually represents a lot of time and work investment if you're gonna draw on something like this. But I love when I do get the chance to draw on this really big Moleskine. Moleskine? I'm not actually sure how they pronounce it. I go back and forth. I don't know. Moleskine, I think. But whatever. When I'm rich and famous someday, they're going to make a gif about this and make fun. Can you believe she called it a Moleskine? Well, I did. So what? Haha. Now, other brands that you can consider would be anything by Strathmore. These are also going to be more affordable brand, but Strathmore makes a ton of different kinds of papers and sketch pads. Here's one that I got. This is my Bristol board. I use these when I'm making my little ACO cards, and this is the Which one are you? It just says smooth surface. So it's the Series 300. There's different kinds of Bristol board. I like the one that's a little less smooth. But Strathmore, good brand. Lots of different kinds of things that you can get. Lots of different kinds of paper. If you're not sure what kind of paper to get, just ask the artist or touch their paper and see if it feels really smooth to the touch or if it's got a lot of texture and like you feel like bumps or you feel fibers of the paper coming up, or if when you touch the paper it feels really smooth and that there's no texture to it. Then when you go to the art store, you can open up the sketchbooks they have there and feel the paper and see if it matches what you felt when you were looking at the paper in your artist studio. Another really good brand, if you're on a budget and you don't know what to get, Canson makes a lot of really great sketch pads and sketchbooks and all kinds of different things that you can check out. And you know, just because it's less expensive doesn't mean it's bad. I mean, my husband is a professional artist and he uses this all the time. Actually, my husband's favorite thing to draw on, his favorite thing, and he's a professional working artist, is computer paper. It really just depends on the artist's preference. So this is why I say it's really important to ask, because you might have like a really fuddy-duddy person like me who's like, no, it must be my Moleskine or nothing else. I can't live without my Moleskine. Or you could have someone like Tad that's like, just buy me a ream of computer paper and I'm happy. So it really just depends. And some artists are picky about some materials and not so picky about others. So see what your artist has in their wheelhouse and check out what they have. All right, so now that we've talked about paper, let's talk about paints. All right, so this is the one thing I actually have not used myself, Daniel Smith watercolor, but I am including it in this list because, like, let's face it, everybody talks about Daniel Smith watercolor, like everybody, and they have rave reviews, and so I trust that they're probably not making this stuff up. Daniel Smith watercolor is a very good brand, highly recommended. It's got great reviews here on Dick Blick. You can get them in pans like this, and they're also available in tubes. But if you are unsure if you should get a tube or a pan, I recommend going with a pan if you're not sure, because I feel like a pan is less commitment. And when you're getting tubes, let me show you real quick. When you have tubes of paint, you have to get like something to store them in, and you got to figure out a way to organize them, and you have to really love a tube paint to take the time to do all of that. When it's a pan, it's all set there ready for you to go. So a pan is like when it's in a little container like you see there in the pictures. See, and it's really convenient and easy to just go ahead, open it up and get a brush out and test out the colors. So pans and tubes are great for different purposes. So that's another question you should ask your artist when you're dealing with paint. Do they want tubes or do they want a pan? They have lots of different kinds of pans available. Another brand, this is a brand that I highly recommend that I've used a lot, the M. Graham watercolors. Ooh, look at those, so pretty. And I have some of those here. So see, I've just got like a container of tubes here that I pull out. So this is some of my M. Graham watercolor. This is sap green. And the fun thing about M. Graham that kind of separates them from others is that the paint is made with honey. And that not only gives it kind of like a cool smell, but the color just reacts in a different way. You get some really nice organic colors with these. Here's another color. This is, of course, I picked the most impossible word to read. Let's give it a go, shall we? Phthalocalamine green. PHTHALOCYANINE green. Very pretty green. Use it all the time. Don't know how to pronounce it. It actually matches my lipstick and my hair. This is my hair color. Phthal... Phthalocyanine. So next time Steve and Jerry makes fun of my hair color, I'm going to be like, Steve, it's this color green. It's phthalocyanine green. It ain't blue, buddy. Okay. So Mgram is a really great brand as well. This is a more higher end one. So is the Daniel Smith. It's kind of hard not to get decent watercolors, to be honest, that are not expensive. So be prepared for that when you're looking. Here are some of the brands that Jerry's Artorama has sent me, and I've actually been painting with these a lot. Here is a painting recently that I did completely with Lukas watercolors and gouache. Let me find it for you. It's a painting that many of you have probably seen me posting on social media, Moonlit Run. So this is my most recent painting of a dark unicorn running through the Terratoff woods. This was painted completely with Lukas watercolor and gouache, with the exception of the little golden orbs. I used Kremer pigments for that. But look, beautiful unicorn. You could do that too. Just get yourself some Lukas watercolors. And, practice painting and drawing for, 35 years. It's really not that difficult. Let me show you what my Lukas paints look like. These came in a pan like this. So it's got all of the different colors in their own pan, just like in the picture. And I really love these colors because they're really vibrant and pretty. This is my little cheat sheet. So it shows me what the colors look like when they're actually on paper. Love these colors. Highly recommend that you guys check those out and use them. I forgot to say a minute ago, if you're gonna get paint in tubes, then you should also get your artist their own, what is this thing called? Palette. A watercolor palette like this. So this is one that I actually made. This is one that I made using all of my random tube paints that I've collected over the years. And this is just a palette that I picked up on Amazon. So the things that you want to look for when you're looking for a palette, you want to make sure that it's got space to put all of the different colors. So they've got these like individual little squares that you can hold the pigment in. And the more of these you got, the better. It's always nice if you can remove them and move them around a little bit. You want to have some big sections so that they can mix big sections of watercolor there. And maybe another side like this where it's a really big area and a couple like little sections down here. So this is like an example of my own collection of paints that I've made with my tubes. So if you're gonna go with tubes and not a complete set like this, I'd also recommend looking into getting your artist that you're shopping for one of these as well, because otherwise they'll have all this really great paint to use and nothing to paint on. And it's really important that you get this kind of of palette, and I'll tell you why. So let's take a quick detour. Watercolor. I'm going to show you what not to get. All right, let's see. I spelled palette wrong, but that's okay. So let's see. They got one from like, okay, so this is like the kind of palette that you would usually get in school, or you might get one that's got like a little plastic container that goes over it. Don't get them one of those. Those really don't do a good job of like keeping the paint organized. And I know they look really fun, and this is like stereotypically what you see all artists use, but don't get them one of these unless they're like an oil painter. This is not what watercolor artists like to use. Watercolor artists like stuff like this. Nice and messy, lots of sections for all of their colors, and this is what you want to look for. Any kind of tin like this or something ceramic is great. You don't want anything made of wood or anything that can absorb the color, because the whole point of watercolor is once it's dry, you can reactivate it. So what that means is if you make a blob of watercolor somewhere, like how they've put a blob of watercolor into these little cups here into these little pans. If you make it wet, then it'll become like paint again. It becomes wet again. And so you can use that again and again and again. It won't become deactivatable. Deactivatable? Not the best word. It won't become set until it's on paper. So when it's in a like a plastic or ceramic or tin container like this, then it retains that quality. Thank you, Julia Bassenhart, for this beautiful picture of your watercolor palette. Where were we? So make sure when you're getting, if you're going to get them tubes like this, get them a palette like the one I just showed you. This is another brand of watercolor that I've used quite a bit the past couple of years that Jerry's daughter Wama has also sent me. This is the Turner Artist Watercolor Set. They come in tubes like this. And they're very small. It fell out. It's very small, but they go a long way. Especially if you're not sure what kind of brand to get, or you're not sure, like, they just want to experiment with these. I recommend go ahead and get them the small one, and they can get the larger size later, because these small ones really do go a long way. Like, I've had them for a couple years now, and I still got plenty of paint left. Let me see if I can find a piece that I used the Turner ones. I think I actually used Turner mostly with the Leviathan. Let me check. Let's go back. I want to make sure, because sometimes I can't remember which paint I used with which one. So yeah, this was the Turner. I used Turner watercolors and gouache for the Leviathan. So this is an example of the Turner gouache that we're going to talk about in a little bit, and the watercolor set. So the colors are a little bit more muted, which I actually like for certain moods I'm trying to do. Like, this creature is obviously really evil and scary, so having like bright rainbow colors like the dark unicorn might not have been the best option, but they're still vibrant enough that it's vibrant, but it's not as vibrant as some of my other works. And I actually really like combining brighter colors like this blue with the more subdued kind of gray green we've got going on here. So their colors are a little bit more kind of natural, I'd say. But I really do love them. I use them a lot. I'm actually planning on doing, since I just did a Lukas painting, I want to do another painting that's another big one that's all Turner colors. I kind of like to alternate between the two of them, give them both some love. And you can get them as all kinds of different sets down below. And did I show you? I'm losing. I need to start putting things over here when I'm done with them. So let's start moving all this stuff over here. Okay. And this pencil. Okay, and my watercolor. My beautiful watercolor bin. This is like my treasure trove of just like all my wonderful treats. And I've got a mix of watercolors in here. Actually, we're talking about gouache right now. No, we are talking about watercolor. Still talking about watercolor. This is like where I keep all of my random tubes that didn't come with a collection. So we've got M. Graham. We've got a lot of M. Graham. We've got a couple Van Goghs. Random just brand that someone gifted me that I started out with that I don't really use too much anymore. I think I've got a couple Windsor Newtons in here as well. I use them sometimes, but my favorite with these kind of like random tubes are the M. Grahams. Put those away. Moving on, we've been streaming for quite a while. It's been getting past the hour, so let's move on. Oh yeah, before we move on, I just want to say that it's really important that you just don't guess when it comes to watercolor. You really want to do your research and know what kind of watercolor your artist likes to use, because different brands have different fillers, they have different ingredients. It's not like graphite where it's kind of like same across the board almost. Watercolors really do vary quite a bit. So they have different transparency, different ingredients, different, what was another, like different lightfast, different transparency, and different granulation. So that means like the transparency will decide how see-through the paint is, and the light fastness again is going to decide how this paint is going to hold up against the light and the elements. And then the granulation is actually all about that kind of granular texture that you see in watercolor. Now, a lot of artists really like granulated pigments. I don't. I like to have more kind of like a solid kind of matte finish to my work. I do want to experiment with granulated pigments later on for some certain effects, but I tend to gravitate more to the more matte sort of pieces. And there is a fly on my monitor, so I'm going to get it real quick. Ugh. Moving on to gouache. I actually still use a lot of Windsor Newton gouache. They're a really good brand. Here is my collection of gouache tubes. Gouache pretty much comes in tubes. I don't think you really can get them in pans. I would think it would be really awkward to use gouache in a pan, and here's why. Maybe you don't know the difference between watercolor and gouache, and you're looking at this and you're like, Heather, what is the difference between watercolor and gouache? And in layman's terms, gouache is like watercolor's angry evil cousin. That is so beautiful, you cannot stay away. So gouache has some of the properties of watercolor and its very own special properties. So gouache, like watercolor, is a water medium, and it becomes activated with water. Now, they also come in really bright, vibrant colors. Like when you're using watercolor, when you put watercolor from the tube or the pan onto the paper, the color is going to desaturate to a certain degree, depending on the brand and the method and all of that. But with gouache, pretty much what you see is what you get. The color stays vibrant and bright and very thick and beautiful. The trouble with gouache is that it reactivates in water all the time. Unless you're using acrylic gouache has acrylic in it, so it dries instantly, just like acrylic paint does, unless you're using a thinner. But we won't go into that. We're getting into high level stuff here, and I know that if you're watching this video, you're probably looking for simple, so I'm just not going to go there. When you're talking about gouache has some of the properties of watercolor, has some of its very own special qualities. When you're painting with it onto the paper, if it gets wet again, it'll reactivate. So that means you can move the paint around. That doesn't generally happen with watercolor. So it can be a beast to tame, but used correctly, it can add a lot of depth and a lot of vibrancy to your paintings. That's why I like to use the two of them together. So if you are going to get them gouache or watercolor, make sure you know if it's watercolor, if it's gouache, and if it's acrylic gouache. If you can just get one of those three things covered, if you just know if it's one of those three things, then you'll be good. So my collection of gouache paints, I use Windsor Newton quite a lot. I love them. I've got some M-Gram gouache. The other watercolor brand that I told you about before, they also make gouache. These are great. I got a bunch of those. And then I also have a set that I got from Turner that Jerry's Artorama sent me. And this is a very impressive set. So thank you, Jerry's, for sending this to me. Look at all this beautiful, these big, beautiful tubes. Now, when you are buying an artist gouache, again, you do also want to get them a palette to go along with it, but you don't have to be quite as picky with gouache, I think, because you can reactivate it, but a lot of the time I think that when people are using gouache, they tend to just want to go straight from the tube more than reusing paint that's been sitting around for a while. So, for example, I just have very simple plastic palettes for this. Let me show you guys an example of one. So this is a very simple plastic palette that I have some gouache in there. And the thing, again, you just want to look to make sure you've got some compartments. I don't think that gouache palettes necessarily have to have the pan, because I think if you're going to be using gouache, typically they don't really want to use it from a pan. They want it to be straight from the tube. So this is kind of just like backup gouache. I typically don't use it from this kind of thing. It's just like a place for me to blend the colors together, really. I like to get it fresh every time. I don't like to go back and use old gouache so much. But sometimes I will if there's a lot of the pigment there and it's ready to go. Sometimes I'll just go ahead and I'll do that. And then, so the Turner gouache, great gouache. Use that all the time. And this is a new one that I just got. This was the Lukas gouache. Oh, it's a beautiful set. I love this gouache so much. So the difference between the Lukas brand and the Turner brand. So funny enough, the Turner watercolors tend to be a little bit more subdued, but their gouaches are like really bright. With Lukas, it's the reverse. Their watercolors are really, really bright, and their gouaches actually have like some really beautiful earthy tones to them that I haven't seen other brands making. So they've got really nice, just very earthy colors that seem very natural and beautiful, and they're a little bit more subdued once they're actually out of the container. So like, for example, like their red there, it's kind of more like a brick red. So it's a little bit more subtle than something like this red that you would get from Turner. So those are some of the differences between those two brands and why I like them. I love them a lot. Is there anything else I want to say about gouache? No, I think you guys got enough information on that. Now we're going to talk about brushes. These are some of the brushes that I like to use. If you're going to paint, you need brushes to paint, right? You can't do this kind of stuff with your fingers. First of all, it's really messy. Second of all, it's really just not safe for some of the stuff to get on your skin or in your mouth or anything. So get your artist some brushes. Here are some of the brushes that I recommend. The first ones that we're going to look at are the Mimik brushes by Creative Mark. So this is an example of one that I have, and it's right here on the website too. I'm talking so much I'm drawing my mouth out. Jerry's Artorama. This is where I got mine. And they've got different sets for you to get. I use the Mimik Squirrel, and I also use their Mimik Kolinsky. So what does that mean? So for those of you who are new to getting brushes, the best, most expensive watercolor brushes are made with animal fur, typically squirrels, and I think there's like a certain kind of mink as well. And these are a synthetic alternative. And the reason why they use the animal hair is because of how it holds water and pigment. So this is a synthetic alternative that I feel works great. I don't actually think I've ever used a brush that had actual animal fur in it. So I don't know what the difference would be in a practical sense, but I use these brushes all the time, and you saw the artwork that I made. I used a lot of these brushes. So they work. They're great. They also last a pretty long time, so I would recommend the Creative Mark collection. You can get those at Jerry's Artorama. This is also a series that I tried just randomly on my own, and I actually really like them, so I'll probably get more brushes from them later. This is the Princeton Neptune collection. They have a lot of different sizes and a really nice point, though. This one looks like it's on its way out. It's getting a little frayed. So like, you'll know that a brush needs to be replaced when it's dry and it just starts to like lose its shape. Like, I don't know if you guys can see, but it just doesn't have that really nice point anymore. So I'm probably going to have to replace this brush soon. So if you're doing a little bit of snooping, look for brushes like this, because that probably means that the artist has used them a lot and they'd like another one. But yeah, I also really like that brand a lot. And then Winsor Newton has come back once again. I want to recommend the Winsor Newton Galeria collection. specifically this collection. I'll tell you why in a second. But the Galeria brushes come in a lot of different sizes. Their zero brushes are great. I use these all the time for doing fine details on my paintings. Now, the other kind that they make is the Cotman collection, and this is like the cheaper brand. But, Windsor Newton, I'm sorry, but I gotta say, I would not get this one. I would go for the Galeria, and here's why. Because I've used these brushes probably the same amount of time, and every single Cotman brush I have, after just like a few paintings, you start to get that chipping. See how the paint from the brush has actually started to chip away? And that is not good, because it's really uncomfortable to actually hold a brush in your hand like this, because this coating keeps the water from getting into the wood and absorbing. So what happens is you'll end up holding this brush in your hand and it's got soggy wood against your skin. And after a couple hours of painting, that just does not feel very nice, and it can also cause skin irritation and other things. So I think it's a good idea to opt for kind of mid to better quality brushes. I don't think it's reasonable necessarily to spend a ton of money on brushes, because we as artists go through them so quickly. Like, they can get really expensive really fast, and I think that really the difference in, I mean, I can't really say this honestly from a lot of experience, because as I said, I've never actually used a brush that had actual animal hair in it, but I think that the difference it's going to make in your work and the quality of your work really is not worth the cost of some of the really expensive brushes. So I would say look for something that is good enough that it's not going to fall apart in their hand, but not so expensive that you're going to break the bank. I would rather invest more money in the paints and the paper, personally. Just need like a good brush that does its job. Don't need to blow the bank on the brushes. We're almost done with this. We just got a few more to talk about. All right, so now that we've talked about brushes, the last thing you're going to need for your painting artist is paper. And I gotta say, I only got one kind of paper to talk about, because it's gotta be Arches. Arches watercolor paper is my favorite. I've tried lots of other cheaper alternatives, and they all suck. They stink. Arches really is, as far as I know, it's kind of like the hallmark of watercolor paper. There are more nicer brands and more expensive brands as well that I'm sure are just as nice, but if you're looking for something that's reasonably priced that has good quality, Arches is a really good place to start. The thing that you need to know from your artist if you're going to buy them watercolor paper is the kind of press that they want. So Jerry's Artorama has graciously provided us with some pictures that will show us the difference. So cold press watercolor paper has texture. So does the rough. So you guys can see there that there is texture, and it's creating shadows in the paint. And then we also have hot press, which is not creating shadow, and it's letting the paint kind of speak for itself. This is personally the kind of watercolor that I use, the kind of watercolor paper that I use. So Arches hot press. I tend to be a control freak, and I don't like the paper making decisions for me that are out of my control. So I like hot press because I can decide how I want the paint to look in every single way, and just like make it my bitch and control it. I don't like using cold press, because even though it's super pretty, I don't like not knowing what's going to happen. And maybe if I used it more, then I would know, and I'd be able to anticipate what is going to happen. I like to know. Amaya Vega is here, and she says, nothing wrong with being a control freak. Heck yes! I'm all about taking my art and just like making it mine and making it do what I want. And hello, Amaya. So happy to see you here. Welcome. But, you know, some other artists, they like to be carefree and whimsical, so they want this stuff. So make sure that you know if your artist is carefree and whimsical or militant. This is important to know when making a paper selection. All right. So, like I said, there's lots of different brands of watercolor paper that are probably better and more expensive than Arches. But for the cost point that I can currently sell my art at, and I like Arches, and they're a pretty reliable brand. So, Arches was a good place to start for pretty much anybody. All right. So, I have just told you in about an hour and a half all of the art things that you will need to know if you have an artist in your life that you want to go holiday shopping for that either uses graphite, colored pencil, watercolor, or gouache. Now, to close us out, I have a couple tips if you're buying art for kids. Now, I must make this legal statement before we begin this section. All right, so I am not a toxicologist. I am not a registered child person who knows what is safe for your child to have, ingest, breathe, or touch. These are all recommendations based on me knowing absolutely nothing about children, except for that I was a child, and these are tips that I wish I had known as a child to tell my parents what kind of art to get me. So, basically what I'm saying is, if you're gonna buy art supplies for kids, please be aware that some of these supplies are toxic. They have toxic ingredients in them. So you need to, as a parent, do your research and make sure that whatever you're buying for your kid is safe for them to use, depending on the age group and the type of medium that you're using, and blah, 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 blah. As parents, I'm sure you're already very well versed in that and very good at it. But here are my general tips and things to keep in mind when you are shopping for children and people of young ages, people that are just starting to get into art. They don't know what they want, or you're just trying to foster an interest in art in your child or nephew or niece or whatever. So first things first, check the safety and age information. That should always be something that you do, especially when you're talking about oil paints and cadmium kind of colors. There's like poison in it. So you have to make sure it's actually safe for your child to use. You can find that information on the website of the art supplies that you're looking for, or if you're shopping at a website or at an art store, a knowledgeable clerk should be able to help you. I would also say to get supplies that are a singular medium and not a giant pack of art that includes a bunch of different stuff. What do I mean by that? Let me show you. Okay, not to badmouth whoever made this. I'm sure that some children really love it. But I would recommend not getting one of these. And here's why. Because all of this... Whoa, there's that fly again. Oh my goodness. It's coming after me because I killed its wife. Sorry, but leave me alone. I'm streaming. Okay. All right. I recommend not getting this for anyone that's just starting out with art, unless maybe it's like a really young child. And here's why. Because all of this stuff is going to be like really low quality and poopy. And that in and of itself is probably just going to not ignite much of a passion for art in general. And when adults and professional artists buy art supplies, they don't come like this. You don't buy something that's got watercolor paint, colored pencils, markers, crayons, pastels. What else is in there? They've got like everything you could possibly want. Well, okay. They got crayons. Those are crayons. What are these? These are probably chalk. This looks like one kind of marker. These look like pastels. This is another kind of marker. Here's some colored pencils. Like, those are so short. You're not going to get anything drawn with them. And this looks like it's probably some sort of watercolor. Okay. All of the art supplies that I showed you, none of them come in a pack like this. So if you really want to foster a love for art and also make the child that you're shopping for feel special, I recommend getting supplies that have like a singular thing. So like a pack of watercolors without all this other stuff on it. A pack of colored pencil. Crayola. There's nothing wrong with Crayola. They're great. But like Crayola by itself is fine. And it'll also help them keep everything more organized. Like, I remember having these as a kid and they fall apart and, like, they're just not really that great. I mean, sure, if they're, like, really young and you just want to get them something that's a low risk investment to you just so they can experiment, then go ahead and give it a try. Maybe these are a good way for a child or that's never used art to just like kind of test a bunch of stuff and see what they like, and then you can figure out what to go buy later on. But Amaya says, I had one of those when I was little. It was horrible. Okay, so I'm not just like blowing smoke out my bum. Artists kind of agree, like this is not really it. You should get like a nice pack of Crayola crayons or some affordable, like a lower grade of Prismacolor colored pencil, something like individual things, because it's automatically gonna be a much better value and like just last better and just be better quality, because nothing is going to, you might think it doesn't matter, but here's the thing. If this kid is using these markers and they don't work, that's not going to foster a love for art. I can't tell you how many times as a kid I would go to use one of those kind of markers and like the I didn't close it properly, or because it's cheap and there's like a leak in it, all of the color went out of it. It just dried up. Or the colored pencils break because they're really cheaply made, or the crayons just crumble. That's going to frustrate anybody, and children are easily frustrated. So that's another reason why I would say, do a step above. Treat them like they're little adults. They're going to be proper artists one day. You want to get them started young. Get them to understand how real art supplies are, supplied to professional adults, and get them something nice. Get them a nice set of Crayola. All right, what else was I going to say? I would also suggest, if you're going to go with paint, that you would go with pans of paint. So something that comes in like something like this. Open up. Something like this. Usually if it's like kid appropriate, it'll have just like little circles. So kind of like this one, where it's just like little circles. And I recommend getting the pans because less mess. Tubes are going to be very, very messy. So if you have young children, I would recommend going with a pan like this. It'll save you some sanity and it'll save your children some sanity. Also, I would say let them try lots of different media and see what they like. Like, kids will go through, like artists will go through all different kinds of periods in their artistic career where, one year they'll be like a digital artist, and then later they'll want to do pencils, and then they'll want to do watercolor. So let your child's interests evolve and let them try lots of different things and see what they like. There are no rules. Let them mix stuff together. Let it be fun. And the last thing that I would highly recommend is that you get them stuff to organize their supplies. Because let me tell you, I remember like as a young kid, I had like in my kitchen, in our dining room, there was like this little like cupboard, and I had my own cupboard that had all my art in it, and it had all of my art supplies too. And everything was just kind of like in there, but it wasn't organized. And so it can be difficult to try to find all of your supplies and also keep them clean if things are not organized. That's another reason why I advocate for buying things individually, because they often come with something to keep the stuff in and keep them organized. Like this comes with a really nice tin that can keep everything together and it doesn't mix with the other medium. What's going to happen when your kid is using this and the paint is all wet, and then they go and close it? Well, now you got wet paint all over your other stuff. That's a big mess. You don't want that. You want to get them individual stuff to keep the medium separated so everything can be clean, because I know parents, you want your stuff and your kids' stuff to be clean. Don't get them one of these. Some stuff that you can get to help them organize. There's really all kinds of different options. It really just depends on your decor and the availability of space in your home, but you can get them just like little containers like this to keep loose paint in. You can get them little plastic drawers that you can organize all the different mediums that they have. And just make sure that everything is organized and everything has its place. That is also going to foster good habits when they become older artists and they have lots of supplies that they need to rummage through to find all the stuff. For pencils, I recommend getting something like this, a really nice pencil case that can have all their pencils in it. See how nice and pretty and organized it is. Sometimes I wonder, like, if I'm just, like, a weird artist that is, like, really obsessed with order. Because I don't know if other people are like this. Or if it's just me. Because, like, this makes me so happy. Just, like, all this order and organization. While other artists like chaos. I don't think the world needs to be like that. We can have fun and be orderly at the same time. It's magical. And that, my lovelies, concludes all of my holiday shopping tips for the artists in your life. Well done. We have made it through in just a wee hour and a half. We have discussed all of these wonderful topics and gone on a magical adventure with all kinds of art and pretty things to look at. We've explored all of the different things that I made and I showed you pretty art. And I got to talk to you about some of my favorite things, art supplies. So happy about that. And I made it through my whole list here. Well done to us. I was thinking, like, it looks a little dark in here. And I just realized my plant light went out. So my plants are going to bed. And I should be going to bed. But I actually still have more videos that I have to record. Okay. So after this, let's see. I'm working on, you guys are going to get a special sneak peek. Okay. Are you excited about it? Get ready. So I am working on a time lapse and a story time video for Moonlit Run. Where is it? We can see it while I talk about it. Here we go. This is me with Moonlit Run. Oh, how beautiful. This is how happy I am with my painting. And Maya Vega says, yes! Yes! There is going to be a story time video and a time lapse of Moonlit Run. I'm trying really hard to make the story time videos a little bit longer because I feel like they just end a little bit too soon. So I'm trying to make it 10 minutes long. 10 minutes of story. It'll be so fun. And then the time-lapse video is going to condense about 40 hours of work into 1 hour. And you can see the painting come to life from start to finish, almost the entire process. So obviously editing 40 hours of footage takes a really long time. I had actually already recorded my script for Moonlit Run, but I didn't realize that I didn't realize until after I looked back at the footage. I was having a really bad allergy attack that day, and then I went back and looked at the footage and I was like, oh no, I really look like I'm having a bad allergy attack. Also, I wore a different color of lipstick and I was like, I miss my green lipstick. I want to do it again, but without allergies and green lipstick. So I'm doing it again. And I'm going to make sure I'm not sneezing or boogery or weird. I also used like a really weird prop that was really dusty, and I think that just made the problem worse. And Maya says, I am so excited. Yes! Story time! So exciting. I'm glad you're excited. So these videos are taking me a little bit longer because it's so much footage, but I finally have gotten through all the footage, so now I'm doing like the extra stuff like that. And then the other video that I'm working on, much hype for this. I'm really excited for this because I love this character, and I cannot wait. There's going to be Holiday the Dragon story time and time lapse. Did you guys get to see Holiday the Dragon during the holidays? If you missed them, you're gonna get to see a very special story time video of him on Christmas Day. It'll be my special Christmas present to all of you. Amaya says, we all appreciate your hard work. Oh, thank you, Amaya. By the way, Amaya, I got your message earlier on Patreon. I am going to respond. I just have not had the chance to yet because I was really busy today doing video stuff, but you will get a favorable response later in the evening. And Amaya says, Holiday! Yes! Holiday the Dragon! And I'm really excited for this one because I actually wrote quite a bit for these stories. Generally, the stories that I write for my pieces are about half a page, couple paragraphs long, and that's why my story time videos, it's kind of like a stretch to get them to be more than 5 minutes because I didn't write a whole lot about them. Then after I write, I talk a little bit about the piece and the idea behind it and maybe the history, blah, blah, blah. But with Holiday, I actually wrote quite a bit. There's about a page and a half of content for each chapter of Holiday. So I'm really excited to make a nice, beefy storytime video that will show all of the different chapters. This is when he gets a stick and see, his special little sticker. This is when he gets a painting. This is when he gets his story cards. Okay. And his play mat or his art mat. I missed the first one. Where is it? And this is when he gets his golden coins. So we're going to go ahead and have an adventure with Holiday the Dragon on Christmas Day. And you guys are going to get to see a little bit of the time lapse that went into making those. And I will also be telling the story of Holiday. And I just really loved this character because the story actually talks a lot about one of my favorite things, which is gift giving. Gift giving is probably my primary love language, and I tried to really get a nice teachable moment, a nice heartwarming lesson in this story about gift giving. So if you didn't get to see it, stay tuned because YouTube, this is going to be on there soon. Amaya says, no worries, I know you are a super busy person. I am super busy and important, but I'm still going to respond to your message because you are also super important to me and probably many other people too. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope you enjoyed all of the art supplies that we looked at and talking about all of the different kinds of supplies that I like to use. I hope that you guys got some ideas on some art supplies that you can buy for the artists in your life, or maybe to try some new supplies for yourself. Thanks to CandyBot for that reminder about bits. CandyBot working very hard tonight to keep us all on our toes in the chat. Let's see if there is anyone that we can raid. Steven Jarian is streaming late, so we can go and give him a little raid and hang out with him. Guys, you've been a fantastic audience tonight. Amaya says, have a good night and stay warm. Oh my God, it's getting cold here in Florida. It is not fair. But then again, my definition of cold and other people's definition of cold, it's what was it today? It was 56 degrees, and I was wearing my giant hoodie outside, and I only walked around the lake twice because I was like, it's too cold. It's too cold for my old bones. I'll go back in. You do not like it? No. Amaya, you live in Florida too, yes? Yeah, so you know. It's just we're not acclimated to this kind of torturous weather. It's just unfair. Where is my sunshine? Where is my temperate temperatures? I did not order this. I'd like to speak to the weather manager, please. Yes, I do. It is torture. But Amaya, all of our friends up north are laughing at us because they're like, what are you talking about? It's 40 degrees and I'm wearing my flip-flops outside. So they are nuts. Actually, my best friend Colleen. She lives in New Jersey and she legit wears flip-flops in the snow, and I just can't. I just don't know how she does it. She must be like extremely cold-blooded. 56 is flip-flops and t-shirt weather. Hey, kitty cat. Oh my goodness, you're so wrong. For me. I'm used to like 80, 90, sometimes 100 degrees. To me, like 80 degrees, pretty good. I like that. 75, nice. And when I go up to New Jersey, when they're having their heat waves, and I'm like, this is great. I'm just like having a great old day. They're like, oh my God, it's so hot. It's like 85 degrees. How are you even breathing? I'm like, it's fine. It's good. Amaya says, in our defense, we are called the Sunshine State, so we are used to the heat. Exactly. We're acclimated to how hot it is. Let's go give Steven Nigerian a raid. We're getting on to like 2 hours. I'm going to not be very happy when I have to edit all this footage. It's going to be a lot of work, but I will do it for you guys so it can be on the YouTube. Anyway, we're going to go raid Steve. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. You've been a fantastic audience. I hope you enjoyed all of the art talk and all of the art supplies and hanging out with me. I certainly enjoyed hanging out with you. Keep an eye out on my social media so you can know when I'm going to be live again, either for another video chat or for Quiet Cam, where I make the art and we just hang out quietly together. If you have not followed me yet, make sure you hit that follow button, and you'll also get a notification from Twitch when we go live. Dreaming Bunny's here. Little late, but I'll catch you next time. Aw, Dreaming Bunny, you just missed me. You just missed me, girl. Well, thanks so much, Dreaming Bunny, for stopping by. It's nice to see you. I hope you've had a great evening. I'm gonna go have a little snack and record some more video for these other YouTube videos I gotta go do. I hope you guys enjoy. That didn't work. I gotta type it all over again. No! Nigerian art. Why is his name so long? Thank you for being subscribed for 2 months, Dreaming Bunny. Wow, thanks so much. You're awesome. I don't know if the raid worked. Let's see if it's working now. And yes, we are going to go and raid. And thank you so much, Dreaming Bunny, for that subscription. Oh, it makes me so happy. All right, everyone, enjoy Steve and have a fantastic evening. I will see you around later. Ta-ta! The lighting is way better for me later in the day because I've got this really great window right here. It's a gorgeous window. It's beautiful. I love it. It's one of the main reasons why I chose this room to be my studio. The downside, though, is that it casts a really strong light during the day that really messes up with the whole video thing when it's filming me.